Okay, so let's dive into this really fascinating and maybe even game-changing legal strategy that takes aim at all the corporate money flowing into American politics. And believe it or not, this huge fight is starting in just one state, Montana. To really get what's happening today, you got to go back in time. See, Montana has this deep, baked-in history of fighting against corporate giants. 100 years ago, they were called the Copper Kings, these massive monopolies that basically tried to buy the whole state government. And the people of Montana fought back hard. That legacy, that memory, is the real backdrop for the battle today.
So this isn't some brand new issue that just popped up. Nope. This is just the latest chapter in a struggle that's been going on for over a century. The names of the companies might have changed, but the core conflict, it's exactly the same. Everyday citizens versus massive corporate influence.
And since the Supreme Court's big Citizens United decision back in 2010, wow, it's like the floodgates opened. You've got elections to swamped with money from who knows where, local voices are completely drowned out by a tidal wave of attack ads, and you have this dark money where you can't even tell who's paying for it all. It really does make our elections feel less like a civic debate and more like, an auction.
All of this has led to this widespread belief, this kind of myth, that we're basically stuck, that we're powerless to fix it, that the rules are set in stone and that's just the way it is now. But is that really true?
The story we're always told is that there are only two ways out of this mess. The first is to hope the Supreme Court just changes its mind and reverses itself, which, almost never happens. The second option is to pass a constitutional amendment. That's a huge, monumental task. I mean, both of those options feel so out of reach that a lot of people have just thrown up their hands and given up.
But what if we've been asking the wrong questions all along? The folks behind the Montana Plan argue that the answer isn't in some impossible dream, but in looking really closely at what the Citizens United ruling actually said, and, even more importantly, what it didn't say.
Okay, so first we need to get two key words straight here. This is super important. The first word is regulation. A regulation is just a rule that controls a power that a corporation already has. Think of things like campaign spending limits or rules that say you have to disclose who your donors are. They're just rules about how to use a power. Now contrast that with the word power. Power isn't a rule. It's the fundamental ability to do something in the first place. And for a corporation, which is just a legal creation, right? That power isn't natural. It has to be specifically granted to it by the state that creates it. And this right here, this is the light bulb moment. This is the whole key to the strategy. The Supreme Court in Citizens United struck down regulations on corporate political spending. But what the court never, ever said was that a state has to grant corporations the power to spend money in politics to begin with. See the difference? If the power isn't granted, there's nothing to regulate.
Now you might be thinking, okay, that's a clever loophole, but it's not a loophole at all. This whole idea is built on a solid legal foundation that's been around for more than 200 years.
Just look at the history of corporate law. Way, way back in 1819, the Supreme Court itself said that corporations are creatures of state law. Then, in the late 1800s, states started competing with each other by giving corporations all sorts of new powers to attract business. The Montana Plan is just using that very same state-level authority to say, okay, let's redefine those powers for our time. This is the absolute bedrock of the whole argument, and it's so important to get. You and me, we're human beings. We are born with inherent rights. Government doesn't give us rights, it's supposed to recognize them. But corporations, they're totally different. They're artificial entities. They only exist on paper because a state law says they do, and they only have the powers the state decides to give them.
So now that we have the history and the legal theory down, let's look at exactly how the Montana Plan takes this old legal principle and turns it into a real, practical solution for today.
The idea itself is actually shockingly simple. The plan doesn't create a bunch of new rules or complicated government agencies. It just says that from now on, when the state of Montana creates a corporation, the power to spend money in political campaigns simply won't be on the list of powers it gets. That's it.
So what does that mean in the real world? Well, it redefines what a corporation is and what it can do inside Montana's borders. And this applies to everything: federal, state, and local elections. And here's the kicker. It also applies to out-of-state corporations that want to do business in Montana. They'd have to agree to play by these rules. All political spending would then have to come from committees funded by, actual people.
And it's just as important to talk about what the plan doesn't do.
It doesn't touch the First Amendment rights of individuals, not one bit. It doesn't stop companies from doing normal, legitimate business. It doesn't restrict the press, and it doesn't get rid of PACs. This thing is laser-focused on one single target: money from corporate bank accounts being spent in politics.
Okay, so that's the plan for Montana, but what about the rest of the country? I mean, could this actually become a model for all of America? Let's look at how this could grow from just a local thing into something much bigger.
The whole strategy here is to take this idea directly to the people. By using a constitutional ballot initiative, they can go right around any politicians who might actually like the current system. The path is pretty clear: get the legal language perfect, have it reviewed, and then launch a massive volunteer effort to get enough signatures to put it on the ballot for a statewide vote in 2026.
And get this, the scale of this grassroots effort is huge. To even get a chance to vote on it, they need to collect somewhere around 100,000 signatures from voters. And this is across a really big rural state. This is citizen-led democracy in action, for real.
So you gotta ask, why Montana? Why start there? Well, like we talked about at the beginning, the state has this really unique history of standing up to corporate power. They have this culture that really values independence and local control, and they're deeply skeptical of outsiders trying to tell them what to do. All that makes it the perfect place to try this out, a potential leader for other states to follow.
And that really gets to the ultimate vision here. The goal isn't just to fix the problem in Montana. The hope is that if it succeeds there, it creates a legal and political roadmap that dozens of other states can follow. You could see a powerful state-by-state movement to take politics back.
So in the end, it all comes down to one fundamental question. We know that states create corporations. They are literally creatures of state law. So if states are the ones who create them, who should get to decide what powers they have? The corporations themselves, or the people of that state? The answer to that question could truly change everything.